Hey, Nick Wingate here. On today's workshop, we're going to be this way if you want to achieve an audiophile grade system. We're going to be going over a lot of details that you may not know about and you may not have heard about. I'm here to give you as much information as I can from the 30 some odd years that I've been doing this. So please stay tuned. I think you'll find this to be enlightening. So first thing we need to talk about is obviously the power considerations. You really and truly should take a very long, hard look at how much amperage your system is going to be pulling. Like all of the amplifiers, DSP preamplifiers, the head unit, whatever you're going to be putting in the system that draws 12 volts slash 14.4 volts, you have to take that into consideration when you're looking at power wire. So understand that the size of the wire, whether it's 2 gauge, 4 gauge, 8 gauge, aught gauge, you have to worry about that. You have to worry about how much draw there is. How far am I going to have to run the cable? If you've got a battery in the rear of the car and you get a distribution block that's 24 inches away and the amplifiers are 24 inches away from the distribution block, do you need to run aught gauge? Probably not, unless you're running an SPL system. But if your battery's under the hood and you're 15 feet away from the distribution block in the back of the car, you might have to run aught gauge, and you can find that online. There's a lot of different formulas for that. So that's the reason why I think you have to take into consideration the power, but not just the power, but the ground, because the ground is as important, if not more important, than the primary power wire, because the ground has to be an absolute. It has to be the best ground you can find in that car. No matter where it is, you're going to have to find it and you're going to have to use it. And again, it may be in the back of the car and you're close enough to the amplifiers. You may not have to run aught gauge wire, but you may have to. If it's underneath the hood and it's the factory ground and it's on the block of the engine, then yeah, you may have to run aught gauge. Again, you're going to have to do some research. Turn on wire. Well, who cares? Well, you better, because you've got to remember that without that turn on wire, nothing's going to work. And so you have to use basically as good as you can get your hands on. And if it's a 16 gauge, rule of thumb, I go up. I go to 12 gauge or I go to 10 gauge if it's at all possible. Why? Longevity. The amount of power, it doesn't run that much, but stop and think about it. Do you really want to use teeny, tiny wire and it's going to vibrate and it's going to shake and it's going to eventually break? But trust me, you're talking to an experience right here. I've had that happen more than one time. So this is the things you have to take into consideration initially when you start looking at designing your system. Do you need an external alternator? Well, if you're running an SPL system, you probably would. Do you need an extra battery? Well, again, if you're running an SPL system, you might. If you're running a big, huge monster SQ system, do you need a battery? No, you might, because the battery underneath your hood and the alternator, it may not be enough. But that's where you're going to have to get with that's right, the brick and mortar folks who sold you the product. Sit down and talk to them, because they're the best source of information that you can get when it comes to this particular part of your system. So the second part of this, and it could be 1A, 1B as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, power is something we have to worry about. Transfer of power from point A to point B, absolutely. But I also think is equally important is the installation. Now, I know a number of you out there think, well, Nick, this is not that difficult to install speakers in a car. Well, no, I disagree. If you're spending $5,000 and up on a system, and quite frankly, most of you, to get your car to sound better, you're spending $5,000, whether you like it or not. I'm sorry, but you are. This is where you have to sit down and you have to consider, what do I have to do to get the best fidelity out of my system? Which means you're going to have to, that's right, folks, damp the doors, damp the car, get rid of all the resonances and all of the vibrations in the car. Because if you don't, then your system is not going to be as revealing as you want it to be. So that's number one. You've got to do that. Number two, you have to start and think longevity. How long am I going to keep the car? How long is the speaker's going to be working in the car? And this is where you have to start thinking, do I really want to use a wooden baffle to put my mid bass driver on and put it in the door? No, not anymore. Not when we have the materials we have today. And you also want to start thinking about what is known as decoupling. That is where you have to make sure that your mid bass, your mid range, and your tweeter are completely isolated from whatever they're attached to. Because if they transfer the energy that they're creating, and they do create a lot, to the baffle, and that goes to the enclosure slash door that you might be having these speakers attached to, this is going to cause a nasty phase shift, and you're going to have tuning problems. So, and I can go on. There's way more to this than you understand. Suffice it to say that this is where you have to start thinking, what do I have to do to make this system as good as I can for the money I'm about to spend? And I don't care if it's 3,000, 5,000, or 50,000. You have to take the install into consideration, because if you're spending a lot of money on the speakers, the amplifiers, the processors, the cabling, and your system is quite frankly half-assed done, you're not going to be getting everything you paid for as far as the equipment is concerned. And that's again where you've got to go sit down and talk with your dealer that you purchased the equipment from, and sit down with them and start going through the system and say, okay, what do we have to do to ensure that my mid-bass driver is working optimally, or my mid-range is working as best as it possibly can? Or do we need to aim the tweeters a certain way and isolate them away from the mid-range driver, because the mid-range driver may be radiating too much energy into the enclosure it's designed to sit in? Yeah, you've got to take all of this into consideration. And I will tell you, your ground zero elite dealers, they're the ones you will reach out and talk to, because they're the ones who know how to do this. One of the key elements in the installation of any product in a car, for as far as audio is concerned, is prepping the environment. And basically what that means is that we're going to have to identify every individual problem in the car when it comes to resonance or vibrations or something that is causing a buzz. You've got to go find that. And this is one of the key elements in any system. You have to take a look at your car and literally take your knuckles and just go rap on everything, whether it's the door, whether it's the dash, whether it's the B pillars, the plastic panels in the back of the car, whatever it might be, including, the roof of the car. And if they bong, that's bad. I don't need them to bong. I need them to sound like dead material. That you wrap your knuckles on a really good home speaker and it hurts and it doesn't do anything. It just goes thud. That's what we're after. And that's what you need to understand to get the most out of your system. You've got to first and foremost damp the car. You've got to take the time to find out everything in that car that resonates and rattles and can cause major problems. Because if you don't, your low level detail is going to be gone. You'll never hear it. I don't care if you're sitting still and it's dead quiet and you start playing the system and all of a sudden you're getting a buzz in a door panel. Yeah, you just ruined basically your experience. So that's the reason why we're talking about something like this. You have got to take the time, take the money, take the effort, and you have to correct all of this even before you turn the first screw on the first speaker, mounting it anywhere in the car. One of the things that is often overlooked in car audio are accessories. And by accessories, for me, that always comes down to RCA interconnects, speaker cable, how good is the distribution blocks, how good are the terminals that we're using if you are terminating the speaker wire that plugs into the amplifiers, or you're soldering the speaker wire onto the leads on the speaker itself. These matter. This is the reason why you find that ground zero build speakers the way that they do, because they're trying to give you the opportunity to get the absolute most out of your system. Well, if you, and I hate to say this, but if you cheap out on your RCAs, you cheap out on the speaker cable, you don't use the right correct distribution blocks, the right termination, you're missing out. You're not letting your system be as revealing as it possibly can be. And I know a lot of people out there will say, "Oh, Nick, there's no difference in RCAs. You're so full of crap." Well, I got news for you. You let your hearing tell you. Don't look at the response curves on a graph that says RCA A plays just like RCA B. Yeah, the curve may say it does, but go listen to it, because the best test instrument known to anybody in this world is your hearing. And I will tell you, RCAs matter. They most certainly do. Speaker cable, it matters. It most certainly does. And if you are spending 5, 6, 10, 12, 15,000 for a system, are you really going to trust your system to play its absolute best with a $3.99 RCA that's what it costs somebody to build? You're really going to do that? You're going to trust somebody that has good old fashioned zip cord speaker wire? Are you really going to use that? Oh, it'll sound fantastic. No, it won't. It's not at the level of fidelity that it needs to be at, because your system is going to be lacking. There's an old adage: your system is only as good as its weakest link. Don't let the accessories, don't let any of this become the weakest link, because guess what? You just spent a ton of money and you cheaped out. Don't do that. When you have your budget, whatever your budget may be, include really good quality products when it comes to RCAs and interconnect, speaker cable, distribution blocks, termination, whatever it might be. Figure that out. Put that in there. I think you'll find that your system will end up sounding as best as it possibly can, given your budget and giving what you want the system to ultimately sound like. Yeah, sit down and figure it out with your dealer. I think you'll find them to be helpful, insightful, and let them guide you through this, because quite frankly, they're the guys that do this every day, and they know. So the last part we're going to talk about is about basically the components. What is going to make up your system? And I have an adage that I've had for a long, long time, whether it's home audio, whether it's car audio, especially in the car audio world. Everything we just talked about, that's going to be part of your budget. And whatever that is, okay, those components we just talked about, that's 50% of your budget right there. Whatever that is, the other 50% is going to be the equipment, the components. Well, Nick, I don't want to do that. Man, I want to spend, a bunch of money on reference speakers and I want to use plutonium amplifiers, and I want to use, yeah, I get it. You want really outstanding equipment. But if you buy the outstanding equipment and you don't do what we talked about here in the last 4 steps, I don't care how much money you spend on the equipment itself. It's not going to be revealing enough. It's not going to work as well as it could, and you just spend a bunch of money for no reason whatsoever. So I know this is disappointing for a lot of people to hear this, and I get it. But I will tell you that if you spend the money on the first elements we talked about, and whatever's left over, you get the best possible solution for your needs at that price point, your system's going to perform exceptionally well. And you're not going to miss it unless you are just a huge pain in the what audiophile. But then if you are, you know how much money you're already going to have to spend. So, take into consideration your budget. This is something you have to think about. Because components are extremely revealing. I mean, let's think about it. Reference speakers are extremely revealing. Plutonium amplifiers, they are extremely revealing. The subs we have, How good is the enclosure? And you've got to take that into consideration as well. You know, how good is the enclosure? How much damping is built into the enclosure? How much bracing is built into the enclosure for the sub? You got to take that into consideration as well. All of these things have to come together to create a cohesive system. And if the system's not cohesive enough, it's not going to be revealing enough. Not for me, not for you, not for anybody. And if we're spending this kind of money, you have to understand the prep work, all of the components we talked about, whether it's power wire, whether it's a deadening, whether it's installation, all of these things matter. And yeah, the components matter. And I'll be the first person to tell you, yeah, they do. But your system is only going to be as good as your install, and it's only going to be as good as your ability to tune the car. And if you don't have the first half of this done, tuning the car to the best of your ability or whoever you're getting to tune the car, I don't care how good the components are, guess what? You're going to have a hard time tuning the car because it's not going to perform at the level you want it to be at. So when I tell you that, yeah, the speakers are outstanding, the amplifiers are outstanding, the processors are outstanding, and they are. Every single solitary thing that Ground Zero works with right now, I can tell you is, for the money, I've never heard anything like it. And I encourage you to get the best you can possibly afford. But just remember, whatever you spend on speakers, amplifiers, processors, that's what you're going to be spending on everything else. And if you add the two together, you get a really outstanding sounding system for whatever your budget may be. So there you have it. These are elements of designing and figuring out your system. This is as fast as I can give you 30 years worth of insight as to how long I've been doing this. You have an opportunity if you follow these steps and you take your time. I think you'll find that your ability to create an outstanding sounding system is really, really within your grasp. It's not that difficult to do. So I appreciate all of you spending some time with me this afternoon or this evening, as the case may be. And I'll see you somewhere else down the line. And if you want some more information as to any of the product from Ground Zero, please reach out and take a look at groundzerousa.com. I think you'll find that website has a ton of information on it. And I think you'll find that most everybody that I've talked to that looks at it is amazed at the amount of information you can gain from it. Okay. Till next time, Nick Wingate. Take care.